Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the IMA podcast, a podcast from Newcastle University's IMA theme. My name is Andrew Fuller. I'm your host. Apologies up front for the little bit of a gap in episodes. It's a busy time of year in the flow cytometry core facility. Busy for everybody, but we're back at it now. I'm joined today by Dr. Clare Stevenson, a senior scientist at the John Innes Centre. How are you doing, Clare? Nice to meet you. Thank you very much for joining me. Everything okay?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I invited you on. It was hooked up by Andy Philby, my boss, who I think has invited you to do you're doing a presentation for us in, not until September. Yeah, 22nd of September. So we just wanted to have a bit of a chat ahead of that, just to give people a really good idea of kind of who you are and what you do. And it's going to be really interesting, I think, because as a lot of the talks we've had have been slightly differently focused, as your one I think is going to be maybe more. We don't know yet because it's not September, but we'll see. But I know you do a lot of work in the technician side of things with the technician commitment. So, but before we start talking about that, I don't know if you don't mind, could you just give us a brief, tell us what you do, who you are, how you got there? So whereabouts are you at the moment? You're at the John Innes Centre, but what do you do over there?
Yeah, so I work at the John Innes Centre, which is a research institute, and it's based just on the outskirts of Norwich in Norfolk. And I've been there a long time, actually. I've been there 25 years this year.
Very good.
Which seems like impossible because I feel like I'm only about 29, but I've been there a long time. So, I mean, maybe if I start how I got there. And then
yes, by all means. Yeah, that'd be lovely.
So I went to university. I went to John Moores University in Liverpool.
Okay.
I went to John Moores University because I didn't do as well in my A-levels as I should have done, because I discovered partying and drinking and going out. But I was really excited about the course at John Moores. It was in biochemistry.
Okay.
And I picked it because it had a year in industry. So I did applied biochemistry degree, BSc Honours. And then in the third year, I went and worked in industry for 3 years doing contract research drug testing.
Okay, so whereabouts was that?
That was in Harrogate.
Okay.
So at a lab there. And I got to do all sorts of things, but I mean, I think I got the experience of working in a lab and learning new techniques, and I got paid a small amount for that year, but actually I think it was invaluable, because then when I went back for my final year, it was a nice break away from the study to see the real world. But then I went back and I did well in my degree. I got a 2-1. And then when I finished my degree, to be honest, I never thought about doing a PhD. It didn't cross my mind. But because I'd done well, I'd got a distinction in my year out in Harrogate. I applied to a competitor company.
Okay.
And I got a job relatively quickly working for Huntington Life Sciences.
Oh, very nice.
Down in Suffolk. So I finished my degree, I worked in a bar for a few weeks, and then I weaned off to start my job working as a scientist in Suffolk. So that's how I came down to this area of the country. And I got that job because I'd done a similar job in my year out. So actually, I'd like to think it was planned, but I think actually doing that degree with the year out actually gave me the stepping stone to the job that I got permanently. So it worked out all right.
Yeah.
So I worked at Huntington Life Sciences for 3 years. Basically, I was involved in doing the ADME studies, which stands for Absorption, Distribution, Metabolism and Excretion studies in animals, and it's something that's required prior to drugs being put on the market, basically. So they're contract research drug testing. So I did work with animals. I didn't work directly with the animals. I'm allergic to animals.
Okay.
But I did work with urine and feces samples.
All the fun stuff then.
Yeah. Basically, the animal's given the drug, and we look at how it's metabolized and excreted by the body, and it's a requirement for law for drugs to be. So I did that for 3 years. I got a lot of project management experience. I worked on high quality assurance projects. I did a bit of report writing for pharmacy. I did some line management, a bit of costing of studies. So yeah, it was cool. I really enjoyed it, actually. Some of the ethics, I mean, I was fine with the work I did, but it was difficult. You couldn't tell people what you worked on.
No, famously so, right? That was Huntington was the one that got targeted in the news.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, I can't remember how long ago, but I mean,
well, it was when I was there.
Wow, okay.
1993 to 1996.
Oh,
and
gosh.
There were people, and you had to be really careful. I had a couple of cases where people had a real go at me, and I thought it was really difficult. And because I'd already worked for one of the competitors' companies, there was nowhere else really to go. And I know I didn't want to carry on working for Huntington Life Sciences, so I needed to kind of have a bit of a career change. My last project, actually, just because it's interesting, my last project I worked on was Viagra. So I did Viagra, UK 924180. I just remember because I did all
There's still the numbers there. There's still numbers there in your head. There you go.
And it was only after I left Viagra, it was when Viagra was new and it being licensed. I thought, that's what I worked on.
Excellent. You had a key role to play, an important role to play in that.
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent. Glad to hear it.
So I started looking around for jobs. I looked at quite a range of different things. And I stumbled across the job at the John Innes Centre, which was advertised as a research assistant position. Okay. That's what they're called in research institutes. And it was working for my current boss, Professor David Lawson. Okay. And he was a group leader there, and he wanted, certainly at John Innes Centre, we have 1+1 research assistant positions. Okay. So the position is you're kind of like the hands in the lab for the group leader. So you do a lot of lab management. You do your own research projects, but you help students with their projects and finish them off. But we were a research group, so we had PhD students. So he was new to John Innes back then, and I got his job as research assistant. I mean, I think he took a bit of a gamble on me because I'd not done any protein crystallography. I mean, I was really good at lab work and I had a lot of transferable skills, but actually, I mean, I'd done a bit of protein preps at university, but I didn't really have that much experience.
No, I imagine the lab management and the organisation skills that you've got working in pharma and all those things is probably very appealing. At least I would hope that those sorts of skills would be very appealing to academics even today.
Them to anything to learn a new technique, which is basically what I did. And actually for me, one of the things that really, I mean, I applied for the job along with some others. When I had the interview, one of the things that when Dave showed me around and he showed me building protein structures on his big silicon graphics back then, I could see the enthusiasm he had for it. Sure. And actually, I actually really want to give this a go. That looks really cool. So anyway, so I started there in August 1996, which is a long time ago. And so he taught me about crystallography. I got some protein crystals my first week, which is always a good start.
That's unusual. I mean, I've the only thing I know about protein crystallography is that it's really hard, and you can spend a PhD trying to get a crystal and never get one, and that's fine. Apparently, you don't need to have one to get a PhD. But very impressive after week one. There you go.
Yeah, and it diffracted to like 1 angstrom resolution. So
wow, there you go. So, have you reached that high again? Hopefully, in the last few years you have. But I
have, yeah.
Was that a high bar?
I didn't realise at the time how good that was. Yeah. How lucky it was that the first project worked so well. Because my second and third project was a lot more normal, and it didn't work quite as well. But I think it gave me a really good start. So oh, you've got green fingers. I mean,
there you go. That's what you want. Yeah, but it's a nice way to start rather than having 3 years of 3 projects that don't work to get to a fourth that does is better. I actually know when I was doing my postgrad in Glasgow, there was a story, whether it was true or not, I don't know, but I was always told there was an undergraduate project in a protein crystallography lab who was given this notoriously difficult structure to resolve, and nobody could do it. The academic hadn't done it. No one had done it. And he came back and apparently completely oblivious said, okay, I think I've done it. Here's the crystal. And it was perfect. It was absolutely wonderful. They had no idea. They had to then go through his lab book, which was not very well maintained because he was an undergraduate student, to figure out what he'd done. They couldn't figure it out for months. Turns out what it was that he'd washed all his glassware with fairy liquid, which is what you're not supposed to do in their lab. They were like, no, everything has to be hyper pure. Don't put fairy liquid on it. And the fairy liquid was the thing that helped it. So yeah, I don't know how common that is.
There's lots of stories from crystallography and I think in some ways an important lesson from that is that I'm really good at recording what I actually do. So even if I haven't done it properly, I do tend to write it down.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. You want to be able to repeat it. Yeah. So it's all about repeatability and being. I mean, I have had it when I've spilt my protein on the bench and had to suck it up, and
sometimes it can be. Sometimes it'll be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, but as long as you know that, I mean, everybody makes mistakes, don't they? But you need to be kind of like honest about it so you can repeat what's happened and see if it was crucial.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I did that. So I was a research assistant for a while. I managed to get promoted, and let's see what order this So yes, so we were a research group, and then after a while, I've been there a while, I did a online years course with Bert Beck on crystallography.
Okay.
So I did the theory to match up with my practical skills. I got a distinction in that, and I did that pretty much in my own time. So that gave me the theory that I was probably lacking when I started.
Sure.
The job. And then after a while, I'm not sure exactly how many years, I'd been helping students with their projects, postdocs for their projects, writing bits of their theses. I'd given talks at conferences, and I thought then, why didn't I do a PhD?
Yes,
when I left
university? Exactly.
I'd like to think these things are, and so I decided, like, I must admit, because of the whole academic career pathways, I did feel that I got treated differently because I didn't have a PhD, even though I was definitely operating that level. So now I'm quite passionate about professional registration and things to do with technician commitment. But I appreciated that back then. I was the same person, but I didn't have the PhD. Yeah. Me being me, I managed to persuade work, which it doesn't work like this now, but I managed to persuade my boss and work that I could do a PhD part-time while I was working.
Yeah.
And I managed to get them to agree to me doing that. It took quite a lot of persuasion. Okay,
that's interesting. What do you think was the stumbling point for them for that? Because I mean, to me, they want you to carry on working the job that you're doing, and they want you to get better, like to improve, your own skills doing your PhD. What do you think was the stumbling block for getting them convinced to let you do the part time? It just seems like that was a tricky thing to do. It would seem like it was an easier thing to do. That's interesting to me.
It's interesting because now they don't let you do it part-time. Now they have a scheme where you can leave your job, apply for a PhD, win it, and then they will keep the job open for you. So it's a bit different now.
I see.
Back then, I think it's because nobody had ever done it, and they didn't see technical stuff like that. Right. And actually, I remember, I'm not going to name names, but I had a conversation with somebody very senior that I had to get to sign the form, and that was the last hurdle. And I went to see this person and said, it's been agreed by my line manager, it's been agreed by management. And he said, but why would you want to do a PhD? And I said, oh, well, why wouldn't I? And I tried to be, actually, it really shattered my confidence. Because he saw me as somebody different, didn't see me able to do that. And actually, I must admit, I didn't quite know how to handle it, and I kind of skulked off. And his secretary at the time, she came and found me and said, that was awful. I will get your form signed for you. And she got the form signed. Thank goodness
for good support staff, eh? But it shouldn't come to that. But thank goodness for her. That's amazing. It was
a lot of years ago, and things have definitely changed.
Yeah.
And my line manager was always really supportive. But I mean, I carried on doing my job. Some of the projects that were my research projects anyway, as part of my job, went towards my PhD. But they got a lot of extra work because I did all the writing, all the additional stuff. I used to come in at the weekends. To get the PhD, and I still did a lot of projects that were not part of the PhD. There was just a few that I had the lead on as part of the PhD project. So that took me 7 years part-time. I had to do it within 8, so I did it. And I also had a baby. Wow,
okay. That's a big project to do.
So my son was born in 2005, and during maternity leave I did a lot of my writing for my PhD, because I was on a maternity leave then, so I had some spare time. So actually in the evening I used to do stuff with my son, then I used to write in the evening when he was in bed, and then get to do it all again. So I successfully defended my thesis in 2007, so I got my PhD part-time. So I always think like I proved I could do it, and I think that's like and has it changed me? I think I realised, I mean, you obviously learn transferable skills with everything that you do in life.
For sure, yeah.
I don't believe if I hadn't done the PhD, I would be a lesser person. I'd still be the same person and have the same skills. But I think doing new things always gives you new opportunities. So I'm really pleased I did that.
Yeah. I mean, 7 years is a massive commitment as well. I think people... when you first say, like, I can do a PhD part-time, people think, well, that's a wonderful, I can do both things at once. I can be in two places, in two brains at once. But I mean, when you say, well, yes, but it'll take you the best part of a decade to do it, it's a massive commitment of time. So it's very impressive. I mean, I don't know if I would have the wherewithal to commit to that for 7 years and have a child as well.
Writing the thesis, because I did that like like 99% in my own time.
Yeah.
And I was doing a full-time job with a toddler and writing. So when I hear students say that they don't like writing, they haven't got time, I always think like, you've always got time.
Yeah, there's always time, right? There's always time. If your shower was leaking water down into your living room, you'd find time to fix it, right? There's always some time that you can find in the day to do the jobs that absolutely need to be done. That's amazing.
I'm really pleased I did it, but I wouldn't want to go back and do it again.
No, well, you don't need to.
Looking back, it was immensely difficult, but
yeah.
I kind of feel like I've got that qualification now, so it probably has made a bit of a difference actually. But it makes me realise that for other people, I don't think it matters that you have it or not. It's the skills that you've got and the competencies you bring that are important.
Yeah.
So I went back to the day job. Carried on. I did manage to get promoted again at some point, but that wasn't because of the PhD. That was down to other stuff. And then there was a bit of a change at work. Without going into too much details, we changed from being a research group to being a facility.
Okay.
So my boss no longer did his own research, but we became a crystallography facility. There was a lot of redundancies at work, and we got changed to a facility rather than a research group, and my job was safe because of that, because I was probably the person that was most experienced in the facility.
Sure.
In the lab.
You've been running the lab for that many years. I mean, they've got to keep somebody on to run the place. So.
Yeah, so we changed to be a facility, and that was a big change, and it's been a slow. So it was probably about 2012-ish, and it was a slow change over many years, so we had to develop a cost charge model. We had to finish off some of our own projects, and then we help other people. So now in 2021, we've been operating as a facility a long time. So so basically my day-to-day job, and this is 40% of my day-to-day job, is I work as a senior scientist crystallography facility for my boss who runs that facility.
Yep.
And I provide all. I have an assistant, Julia, who works for me, and her line manager.
Yeah.
And we provide all the expertise for protein crystallography. So Julia now does the majority of the lab work, looking after the robots, and I do a lot of the troubleshooting, helping, data collection, structure solution. I'm depositing the crystal structures today. That's something else I'm doing. So that's what the day-to-day job is. I do all the finances for the facility. So I do that for my boss. So I do all the cross charges, all the financial planning, and that's quite a headache, as you probably know yourself. I do,
yes, very much so. I mean, it's interesting to me. I've known a lot of people who work in facilities. Obviously, that's what I do for a living as well. So, you meet those people at conferences and talks and all the rest of it. I've not met people who've gone and done the transition the way that you guys have in your place, and that you previously were a research group doing that, having PhD students and postdocs, and that you're now a facility. So it's interesting to see how the difference you found between doing those things. Because for me, I've only ever worked in a facility. Whilst I've been there, I have worked at research groups in the past, but I do find it is a bit of a change. Like the mentality to it's a lot more of a service model. You have to make sure everybody's happy. You have clients, customers, whoever you want to call them, students. It's up to you to keep their projects running smoothly on your instruments and so on and so forth. So it's interesting to hear how you found that. That's really good. It's an interesting thing.
I think as crystallography, we're very collaborative because it's very long-term projects. So there's still quite a lot of research element to it, but you hit the nail on the head in terms of, because people are paying for you, they kind of expect it to work. And you always have the control over that. There's
a funny thing there here.
So actually, I find it quite pressured actually. And but the other side of it is it's not your project. Obviously, I care deeply about the projects I work on, and some of them are almost like my project, the crystallography side of it. But ultimately, it isn't my project. I can only do what I do. Ultimately, it goes down to the student, the postdoc, to decide where they want to lead that. I can advise them and help them and do a lot of the work, but ultimately it's their project and not mine, which sometimes is good as well. Yeah,
that's true. The thing we say to people when they join us at the facility for the first time is, as an employee for the facility, is that it's absolutely correct that the academic who's talking to you will think that their project, and it's true, their project is the most important thing in the world, and it is the most important thing in the world to them. To you, every project has to be the most important thing in the world, because you have to be fair to every single one. If you offer favoritism to one project over another for whatever reason, then that's not fair to every customer. They're paying the same amount. Then you should get the same amount of help. That's not to say that everybody wants the same amount of input from you. I'm sure you'll find there are some people who want to do their own thing and they just want to come, use the equipment, take the data and leave. That's fine. They're just as valid to do that. And there are some people who need a shed load of help every single step of the way, and that's fine. One of the questions I want to ask, just from a personal interest, is how does your facility handle like recognition? Do you ask to be put on papers? Do you have like an agreement in place that says if you use the facility, can you say thanks to, so and so, or how do you find that?
I actually recently wrote out our authorship policy because we didn't have an official one. So I wrote that and got that approved. So we have got an official authorship policy now. But I've been really lucky actually, because I work with some great people, and actually for the crystallography facility, actually they do absolutely need us at quite a lot of the stages, most of the groups. So actually if I've made so I think it's quite straightforward. I think I personally have a conversation with any new starter. If you made an intellectual contribution to that publication, like a postdoc would, like a student would, then you deserve to have authorship the same as anybody else.
Sure.
Just because they pay for postdocs and students, it's just a different. So if they couldn't have done that without your intellectual contribution and troubleshooting and help, then I think you deserve the authorship the same as everybody else. And in the crystallography platform, it absolutely happens. It's no problem. If I've just showed somebody how to use the robot and got them started, but then they are really independent after that, then I think they should acknowledge the platform in the publication, because we've obviously maintained that. So I think it's quite straightforward, and I personally welcome an open discussion about it. I've got lots of publications, so it's not a be all and end all, but I much prefer somebody to have an open conversation about it. And I've had it both ways, where I've spoken to somebody and said, actually, I think I should be an author on this, because I actually wrote that bit of the paper, and I was an author on it. And I've had it the other way, where I've spoken to people and said, actually, I'll tell you what I did on this, and it's down to you to judge it, because I think it's borderline this time. And they're people that have put me as an author, and I've thought, actually, I did do some work on it, but maybe not as much as I would have done in the one that I'd argued the other way. So I try and be really fair and do both ways. Actually, every time I've said that, they've still left me as the author. But
exactly.
One day they will take me off, which will be fine, because I want to be honest and open about it. I'm happy to say that what I did and what I didn't do, and it's down to them.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
It's a team approach.
For sure.
So I might tell you about my other job as well, because you might have some questions.
Please, carry on.
So I work on the crystallography platform for 40% of the time. And then when I did my PhD, I did quite a lot of surface plasma and resonance and biophysics as part of my PhD to complement the crystallography. And then when we had this big restructure in 2012, there was the SPR machine. The person that looked after it took early retirement, I think.
Sure.
So I was asked to look after it. So I started doing that. And then over time, that's grown to be a platform and facility in its own right. So
Excellent.
That's now called the biophysics analysis facility. And my long-suffering boss, I kind of said to him, I want to run that, because actually it's my expertise, it's me that's driving this. And he's let me do that completely independent of him. And I think that was a really big stepping stone, because it's made me, on crystallography, he runs the facility. I have a lot of expertise and do a lot for it, but ultimately the book stops with him. Whereas in the biophysics facility, he's my line manager, but he has nothing to do with the facility. He lets me manage that completely independently. So it started off with an SPR machine, but now we've got 4 different techniques. We've got CD, SPR, ITC, and mass photometry. We've got some new equipment. We've got a brand new SPR machine, which I wrote the grant for as the PI.
That's those small feats, Congratulations on that. That's good.
So the BA facility by physical analysis has grown. So now I've got 40% of my time on that. So I do that separately. And Julia works across both facilities, which is why I'm her line manager rather than my boss. So it's a bit of a weird setup, but it's kind of happened like that because how I've driven the changes in my job, I think, a little bit. So I do the finance, the planning. I run all the experiments for the BA facility. The BA facility, the experiments are a little bit shorter. So I have less publications for the BA facility, but it is relatively heavily used, and it's increasing actually. So that's growing.
That's good. Very good.
But it makes me immensely busy because I'm split across both. I mean, we have some customers that use both, but some
I was going to ask.
Independent.
Yeah, I was going to ask is that are you like a useful bridge between people who maybe don't know they want to do BA stuff and just do the spectroscopy, the protein crystallography stuff, and then you can say, well, have you thought about can we use this other kit? And I think you could probably be useful with that and point them in that direction.
I think people get a bit confused because I work across both, and I think in some ways, maybe it might have been more sensible just to have one platform, but then that I'd be doing the same work without the recognition for being the facility manager. So for me, it was really important. And I'm on publications without my line manager now because the BA, it's completely independent. So ultimately the book does stop with me. And actually that was quite a big learning curve, when a publication's going out. With crystallography, I can always say, oh, can you just check this? I mean, it's probably okay.
That safety net,
Yeah, but I didn't have the safety net. So that was something. So I think in terms of development, that was a really big change. And so I can really drive the direction of that facility because ultimately it's my facility. So.
Yeah, for sure. You might get bigger and take over crystallography. You never know.
Yeah,
you could just swallow it up.
It's definitely growing at the moment, and at the moment, you see, I've not even got one person on that facility.
Right.
Because I'm 0.4 and Julia's 0.3, so we've got 0.7 of a person, and it's ridiculous. So I mean, I feel massively busy.
Yes, I can imagine so. And you are, well, it's not just a feeling, it sounds like an actuality. You are very, very busy. And on top of all that, you also do the technician stuff as well, right?
So I've got 20% we've not accounted for now.
I was going to say, I mean, what do you do with all that extra 20% of your time?
So the extra 20% of my time, so 10% of the time, I lead for the technician commitment for the GIC. So I've always been passionate about careers for everybody, and it doesn't matter what qualifications you have, it's what you bring to the table, and everybody should work together and be respected for that. I mean, I guess that's just one of my values in life.
Sure.
So I formed what you'd call the Technician Voice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was chair of the Technician Voice, but I rebranded it back in probably 2016, 2017 to include, it basically includes everybody that's not a postdoc, a student, or a group leader. So it's all our technical staff, but it's very inclusive. And I chaired that for a further 2 years and gave it some sustainability. So it had a vice chair that then took over after 2 years. And at the same time was when the technician commitment was launched. So I was already actively involved with the Science Council and things in terms of that type of thing. So John and his centre were founding signatory of the technician commitment, and I took on the role as lead for that. I did it in my own time to start with, but a few years ago I got 10% of my time assigned to it.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
So we've done So we did our initial action plan, then we did our 1 year report on the action plan assessment, and now we've done our phase 2 one. So I submitted that back in December, and we've got a new action plan running from 2021 to 2023.
Okay.
So
what are the highlights from the action plan? Is there anything that you specifically that you've been focusing on? Any specific avenue that you're kind of driving your technicians to focus on, or is it a little bit more general than that? I'm not aware of ours. I know I've got an interview that I need to edit with Mel. I think you've probably met Mel each before, because he does a lot of the technician commitment stuff here at Newcastle. But I must admit, I'm a bit ignorant as to what's on our action plan for technician commitment.
Well, you can look at anybody's action plans, and you can look online and see ours, because that's part of it. And it focuses around the pillars of recognition, visibility, career development and sustainability. And we've got actions under all of them. I think what we're doing is pretty good anyway, so it's about keeping the momentum going and bringing new things in. So I do a lot of work in collaboration with other research institutes, because when we started the technician commitment it was very HE focused. So I helped form the Research Institute Technician Group, which is 9 institutes now that are all signatories to technician commitment. So we've actually got a meeting today about that, and we're having a symposium in September and an award scheme for Research Institute.
Wonderful, yeah.
So that is new, and then I do quite a lot of the external stuff and the impact, and bring that in for our technicians. And we have a very active chair of our Technician Voice now, and I work really closely with her. So she has regular newsletters and updates. So the idea is to try and increase the engagement, and getting the engagement is difficult, actually. It's really hard. I mean, we've had quite a few virtual events with the Research Institute Technician Group. There's lots of opportunities, but trying to get people to take them up is difficult.
It's one difficulty to just create the opportunities for people, but it seems like you put all the effort into creating the opportunities, and then surely someone would snap them up, right? Because it's an opportunity to do it. But no, you have to kind of herd people towards it and really, flag it up and almost like have a role in marketing and pushing it out to people for extra things they can do.
It's really difficult. That side of it is really difficult. So the lady I'm working with now, Sarah Tolland, who chairs, we call it the Research and Support Staff Voice, we work really well as a team. So we're hoping between us, she can help the internal enthusiasm and I can bring the opportunities in from the external. Yeah. And then we log all the impact. So actually writing the assessment documents at the end is a lot of work. And so this time I'm keeping the impact going. So I'm going to do yearly reports and updates, which I'll provide everybody. So I'm hoping that will help with the engagement as well. But it's just plugging away at it. I mean, I only officially do it 10%. So it's I do it a lot more than that because I spend a lot of my own time doing it.
Sure.
But I'm really passionate about it. I love it. And I kind of think when you make a difference to somebody, so when you see people doing stuff they didn't do, and I really believe you need to take the opportunities in life. I mean, I'm good at doing that. I think that's why I've achieved what I've achieved.
Sure.
But people, it's no good whinging about not having the opportunities. You need to go out and find them. And when they're there, you give them a try. You've got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Because, so we're looking, so for our Research Institute Technicians Symposium, there's an option for 3 technicians to talk from Research Institute, so it's not relevant to Newcastle. But it'll be interesting to see if anybody actually puts themselves forward, because it's a really good external visibility.
Sure, yeah.
It's a real honour to get asked to talk, but we'll see if anybody puts themselves forward. I mean, I think it's going to be having to talk to a lot of people to try and persuade them.
Yeah, especially when it's, people have a block in their head sometimes about presenting to large groups of people, but I think, it doesn't need to be a scary thing as it boils up to be. People build things up in their head too much.
The first symposium was in 2019, and actually each institute could nominate 1 technician to talk, and we ran an internal competition. It was informal, where everybody had to present 1 slide, and we struggled to get people to even do that.
Do 1 slide, wow.
Yeah, so I had to kind of persuade people that they should give it a go. And the lady we selected, Sophie Abel from Horticultural Services, she was selected to give the talk at Ritz, and she'd never spoken to that large audience before. She was in the same stage as Paul Nurse at the Crick, and actually she did a brilliant job, and I've got pictures of her doing it, and we helped mentor her to get her there. And I think that was been one of my highlights, seeing somebody step outside their comfort zone. She struggled a little bit in terms of having the confidence to do it, but she delivered. And then hopefully she's learned a lot from that process. So the opportunity to do that is what I really like, but trying to encourage people to. But ultimately, if people want to complain and don't put themselves forward, well, then it's their prerogative as well. You can only lead a horse to water.
That was the phrase. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? That's the one that comes back and again and again and again.
And it's interesting because you do all these things and you never know where it's going to lead and whether it's going to be good. Some of the things you do, they don't lead to anything. It's a lot of work, but you always learn something out of it. And interestingly, so we've got 10% left that I haven't accounted for.
I mean, I've lost track. You could be at 150% for the
so my 10% left. So actually in June, I got offered a really exciting opportunity. It came out of the blue. So Kelly Veer, who leads the UK for the technician commitment, asked if I wanted to have a secondment for 10% of my time to work for the bigger UK-wide technician commitment. And I never really thought it would happen, but I actually had my appraisal the following day, so I spoke to my boss about it, and he was really supportive because he knows I'm really passionate about it. All the work. And I don't know if anybody at GIC has ever had a secondment before, so I thought it's going to be difficult. But actually, I've got really good support of management because I do a lot of stuff that benefits the John Innes Centre for the technician commitment, so they were really supportive. Consequently, I'm now working 10% for the Science Council, Gatsby, for the technician commitment across the UK.
I mean,
so I
that's amazing.
That in June, so that's only new. And it's my dream. I'm really excited about it. But it wasn't planned like that. That happened because I guess people knew me from the external stuff I do, that I go to events, I always try and deliver, I give talks. So people got to know me, and that's why that opportunity came up. And it wasn't planned, but that's the really good example of how sometimes something good really happens out of going the extra mile. I do such a lot in my own time and put my heart and soul into it, and something good has come out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hoping that with my experience across the research institutes and with the technician commitment and leading, and being a technician myself, I'm hoping I can add to the bigger picture as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you're the perfect person you're 10% of the perfect person to put into the role anyway. But no, that's amazing. Well, I can't wait for everybody else at the IMA and everybody else who wants to join us at the presentation to come and hear what you've got to say. Because if there's anything like the story that you've told to me this morning, is going to be something there for everybody, right? You've had so many different hats on. You've done, academia, you've done industry, we've done technical commitments, working for the Science Council, there's starting a new facility or spinning one out, or however you want to phrase that, and doing amazing work at JIC. And
I think it'll be a little bit a careers talk.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be a great one for that
as well.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be a really useful. We get the IMA, because the IMA is a little bit of a different theme, and they are research themes. They restructured the FMS, Faculty of Medical Sciences, and a bunch of the other schools, and they gave us all themes. And the IMA, which is innovation, methodology, and its application, it's not infection and immunity. It's not like there's not a central research theme. It's very much innovation and methodology, and the facilities come under that as a general rule. So we capture most of the facility work, and I think your work changing into a facility and then making that facility very successful, it's going to be really wonderful to hear. So I'm sure you'll give the crystallography guys here a run for their money. I'm sure they can pick up some ideas from the way you run it. So it sounds like really interesting.
Quite interesting for me to hear how it's run at universities as well.
Yeah.
I think because how we run our facilities is how John in his centre does it, and it's right or good or not. It'd be interesting to learn from other people as well as part.
Maybe we could maybe something we can talk about via email with Andy as well. Maybe we can get a meeting together with facility managers. We can set like a fairly informal meeting up, and you can have a talk to them, because even within the university, the different facilities are run differently. It depends very much on the facility. Some, like ours, the flow cytometry one is run differently to bioimaging, which is run differently to crystallography, which is run differently to, they're all different beasts. But
I think it'd be really cool to learn from each other, because it evolves kind of internally, and our facilities have evolved a lot over the years. It's always changing how we have to do stuff, and the work we get, and how we charge, and how we do our business plans and things. And I do it across both I do the finances across both the facilities, so it's quite interesting because they're quite different. They're similar but different, if you see what I mean, because they're different styles of work. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
No, definitely. Excellent. Right. Well, I think that's a great place to leave it. I think your talk's on the 22nd of September. So I'm just reminding people listening, if they please come along to that. It'll be, I imagine it's still via Zoom. I don't know if you're planning to make the trip. Haven't decided yet. Well, it may be that it's in person, which would be very different, but equally as wonderful. And even if it's not, it'll be really interesting to see you again then. Thank you ever so much for joining me. Is there anything else you want to plug at the end here for people listening, or point people in any direction, or have we said?
That's fine.
Wonderful, no problem. We'll leave it there. But yeah, thank you so much, and I'll speak to you again really soon. I'll see you soon. Bye now.
Okay,
bye.